Good morning, Eagles fan. I love saying that. Welcome to the Kickoff Show, presented by Axalta. I'm Chris McPherson, joined alongside Fran Duffy as Wembley Stadium serves as a backdrop for today's showdown between the Philadelphia Eagles and the Jacksonville Jaguars, two teams that were in the Final Four a year ago who are looking to get to 500 before the bye week. The Eagles are coming off a gut-wrenching loss to the Carolina Panthers. Not only do they have to overcome that, but they have to overcome the first international regular season game in franchise history, and the trip and the travel and everything that comes along with that. And for Jacksonville, well, they've lost 3 straight games. However, Fran, they are much more familiar with the trip overseas as they've won their last 3 games across the pond.
Yeah, I would say if they've got one advantage going into this game, Jacksonville, that's it, is their willingness and their familiarity with going across and playing in London. They're home away from home. That's the one advantage I would say Jacksonville does have in this game.
All right, let's send it to England, London's Wembley Stadium, as Carson Wentz is getting ready for action. And Fran, a very interesting matchup here today unfolds. Jacksonville is depleted in the secondary. So I wonder that even though the Jaguars have an outstanding pass rush and really great talent at all 3 levels of the defense, will Jacksonville be tested by the Eagles' offense? Will Doug Peterson allow Wentz to go deep against this secondary with so many injuries and other things to consider here today?
I think when you go into this game, I think that's the matchup you most expect the Eagles to try and exploit, right? Is the fact that they're missing 3 of their top 6 defensive backs going into this game, including one starter, A.J. Bouye, who is an outstanding player, was the big free agent signing a couple of off seasons ago. They've got Jalen Ramsey, outstanding talent, one of the best young corners in the game. But the only other corners that are live for them right now are 3 undrafted free agents. You've got Quentin Meeks starting opposite Ramsey, a guy who was undrafted out of Stanford. He's big and he's physical, but he really struggles to run. He really struggles to change direction. Those are the matchups you expect the Eagles to try and exploit here. To me, I wouldn't be shocked if the Eagles go with less 2 tight end sets here today and instead decide to go with multiple receiver sets. You'll see Nelson Agholor, Jordan Matthews really put stress on that secondary, try and create some favorable matchups. Because last week, what the Jaguars did was that they then used rookie safety Ronnie Harrison as their nickel corner. If I'm the Eagles, I want Ronnie Harrison one-on-one with Nelson Agholor as much as possible in this game. That's one little matchup I would keep an eye on here today.
Speaking of Ronnie Harrison, as we look at the starting lineup for the Eagles offense, it should be noted that 4 of the Jaguars' defensive backs were arrested early Saturday morning at a nightclub, reportedly over an unpaid bar bill. Reportedly, Harrison was one of those players involved. The Jaguars did acknowledge the arrest. Quite a snickerdoodle, to say the least, going into today's matchup. Now, can the Eagles get off to a fast start? And here's why I ask you this, Fran. They led 17-0 last week against the Carolina Panthers. Great job there. Jacksonville has struggled with slow starts. In their 3-game losing streak, they've trailed 20-0, 24-0, and 20-0 to the Chiefs, Cowboys, and Texans. Not all world beaters on offense during the 3-game losing streak, which would be huge in trying to neutralize that outstanding pass rush from Jacksonville.
Yeah, no question. And I think really the big thing for me is almost from an emotional standpoint with this fast start, because you know that the Eagles going across the pond for the very first time, they're a little bit sore. Maybe they're still trying to catch up to the time change. If you get down to an early hole, those negative feelings start to creep up, and you got the bye week next week. Those guys are thinking about vacation. You don't want to get into an early hole in this game. You want to jump out quickly, and especially when you mentioned Blake Bortles, he plays so great in this stadium, and they also are willing to take shots downfield. Yeah, they don't have the greatest talent at wide receiver, but they are willing to push the ball down the field vertically. Don't let them stay in this game. You want to make sure you get out to an early start and then hold that lead late in the game.
All right, speaking of Bortles and the Jaguars offense, let's look at the Eagles starters on the defensive side of the ball. But when you look at Jacksonville's offense, it really starts and ends with the ground game.
Yes.
Leonard Fournette is out once again with a hamstring injury. So the Jaguars traded for former Browns running back Carlos Hyde, and he will make his debut today. Can Hyde, along with TJ Yeldon, who is still considered the starter, stabilize this ground attack?
That's what they're hoping for, because when you looked at this team, they were in the AFC Championship game a year ago, and their identity was based on the ground game. They ran the ball more than any team in the NFL. They wanted to be able to attack teams between the tackles, get downhill, and out-physical them. Well, that has not been the case this year. They're in the bottom third in the NFL in yards per game. They're in the bottom third in yards per carry. The run game hasn't been there. They've had to rely on Blake Bortles, and he's just kind of shown the kind of quarterback he is. He's not the guy that can shoulder the load for an NFL offense. And so that's really what you want to do. If you're the Eagles, they have one of the best run defenses in the NFL this year, number 2 right now. They were the best run defense in the NFL a year ago. So if they're able to stop the run, take that away from the Jaguars, force them to lean on Blake Bortles, that'll play to their favor. What's
interesting is you mentioned how Bortles will test the Eagles defense deep. He likes to take his shots down the field and go vertical. But when you look at their receivers, Dante Moncrief, Dede Westbrook, they really want their receivers to win after the catch. It's a lot of short crossing routes that's going to force the Eagles' defensive backs and the linebackers to tackle well today.
No question. That has been a bit of a sore spot, right, for this Eagles defense, is coming up, rallying to the football, making the tackle. It was an issue last week. It's been an issue in some of the losses this year. They have got to make sure they come down and tackle well in the secondary.
The biggest thing with Bortles is, can he protect the football? Okay, he was benched last week largely because obviously the Jaguars couldn't get anything going against the Texans. Texans look great on defense. However, he lost 2 fumbles and has struggled to protect the ball this season. The Eagles, meanwhile, Fran, have not done a good job of generating takeaways. So that seems like it's one area where if the Eagles can jump on them early, it would be forcing some turnovers.
No quarterback in the NFL has turned the ball over this year than Blake Bortles. So to me, that's an area where with this pass rush, and we'll talk about that in a little bit, I think that's an area where you want the Eagles to jump out quickly, like you said, try and get the pressure, turn the heat up. They're playing with their 3rd-string left tackle. That's actually the other big loss for this Jaguars team. Cam Robinson was lost early in the season, so whether it's Michael Bennett, whoever it is off the right side, Josh Sweat we're going to see today, whoever's rushing off that offensive left side, that's a matchup they can win. That guy has struggled. That's Josh Walker, the left tackle for the Jaguars.
It should be noted, Jadeveon Clowney feasted last week against the left tackle for the Jaguars. So if, like you said, whether it's Graham, Bennett, whoever is over there, it would be big to try to win that matchup right there. All right, so we have a lot more coming up here on the Kickoff Show presented by Axalta. What we're going to do now is we're going to send it back across the pond because we got to get into some of the storylines as well as some bold predictions. Fran, I have not done very well on this to date. I think our luck could change today. So we have Eagles insider Dave Spadaro, who, look, he's been a man of the people out there in London along with Amy Campbell. Dave, what do you have in store for us this week? You've been the best with the bold predictions. I expect you to deliver once again.
Well, I shall deliver, Chris. Thank you very much. Beautiful day here at Wembley Stadium, and Amy and I indeed do have our storylines and our very, very bold prediction.
Yeah, we're being very bold. I guess we're in London, so we're gonna really go for it. For me, the storyline and really the key for the Eagles in this one is the run game, and we saw that kind of cost them the finishing strong last week in that game. And Jacksonville has a really good passing defense, number 2 in the country, but their run defense is not great. So I think if the Eagles can really get the run game going, have a very balanced offense, that's going to be huge for them. And the jet lag, too. I know you're settled in. You've been here a few days, but I came over with the team, and I'm feeling disoriented today, so I can only imagine how they're feeling, too. So,
well, I hope they're not disoriented.
Yeah.
This is a must-win game for the Eagles. For me, the key to the game, the storyline is the intangible of how do you bounce back from losing a 17-point lead in the 4th quarter last week. It's been a long week. Doug Peterson instituted an 11 o'clock curfew. This is all business for the Eagles. How do they bounce back and take care of Jacksonville and get to 4-4? It's a mental thing, a desperate, urgent thing for the Eagles. That's my storyline to watch. Now, our bold predictions, well, Amy, you begin again.
Yeah, I'm going to go back to the run game again, but on the Jacksonville side, this is a team that wants to run, but they haven't been as successful as they want to, and we know the Eagles have a great run defense, so I think that our team, the Eagles, are going to win that battle, limiting Jacksonville to less than 100 yards on the ground and less than 10 points in this one.
Okay, well, I don't know how bold that is, because I'm going to go really bold here. I'm going to tell you this. The Eagles will throw the football, and against an inexperienced secondary at the cornerback positions anyway, save Jalen Ramsey. How about this one? Nelson Aguilar throws a touchdown pass
That is
today.
bold.
All right?
That is
If
bold.
you're going to go bold, you might as well go for it.
We're
and
drinking the tea over
that's
here.
where we are here. So
Yes.
the Eagles at 3-4 need to get to 500, and to do so, they're going to have to take
Big
some
one.
chances. Back to you guys at the NovaCare Complex.
Spicy to say the least. Dave must have been watching practice while he's over there in London. Where else is he going to come up with that one there?
Got the London special.
Wow, that's a good one.
That's it.
So what I actually love there was, harken back to 2017. You had whatever was takes from Imagine Dragons playing in the background there. That was a big song to help get the Eagles across last season. So good to hear that as they try to get back to their winning ways. So unfortunately, this is a time where we have to go through the standings of bowl predictions. Again, Amy, Fran, myself, we have all of 2 victories on the season. Dave is winning with 3. So I guess it's the 3 of us against Dave, and the insider is right now on top right now. But Fran, today is the day you get on the board. What do you have for us?
I like to think, though, Chris, going on the other side of it, I'm the one who's winning because I'm picking the most bold, and therefore I'm over. But I do think I'm going to get on the board here today. I think that maybe he's not, I don't know if he's going to throw a touchdown or not. I don't know if we're going to see the London special, but I think when you look at Nelson Aguilar, this is a great opportunity against a talented defense when everybody's healthy, but losing so many of their horses here in this game. I like Nelson Aguilar to get a catch of 40-plus yards. We have not been able to see him get down the field consistently here so far in this 2018 season. I expect that to change today against the defense that is preventing big plays at a great rate. I expect that to change here today.
It's interesting because Mike Rowe in his press conference this week hinted that Aguilar needs to get more involved in the deep passing game. They've been doing a lot of short routes with him, trying to take advantage of that maneuverability, the yards after catch. Hasn't really been there. Let him use his talent and stretch the field. All right, so Blake Bortles, he was benched last week in favor of Cody Kessler. The Jaguars decided to go back to Bortles. But, however, according to ESPN's Adam Schefter, he's on a short leash. Well, the Eagles defense needs to be a bunch of hungry dogs, and put Bortles back on the bench and get to 500 entering the bye week. So that right there is my bold prediction. So we've given you the bold predictions. We've given you the storylines to watch. How about the players to watch? Let's bring in the Hall of Fame duo of Merrill Reese and Mike Quick.
Hi, Chris. Are you there? That's about as well as I can do. The history lesson is that we're at Wembley Stadium, known as Wembley Stadium because it's in the town of Wembley. Yes. All right, aside from history, Mike, who are you watching? Who's your spotlight on today?
So the obvious guy is Carson Wentz, and I'm going to keep a particular eye on him. He is the engine that makes this team run, and Carson Wentz has to play well, has to distribute the ball. You don't want him to be the guy to do everything, but be that distributor to get the ball into the right place to make this engine truly run.
My guy to focus on today, this morning, this afternoon, or whatever it is number 55, Brandon Graham, because he is their most prolific pass rusher. He has to get to, he has to sack, he has to hurry Blake Bortles, because Bortles is on a very, very short leash. Get to Bortles, force him into an interception, and Cody Kessler could be the Jaguars quarterback. So that's it. Have a great afternoon.
I just like the cool head nod that Mike Quick gives during the interview there, letting Merrill.
He is cool personified.
That is the truth. Actually, cool personified. I will give Merrill props here. That jacket, that satin starter jacket is sweet. And by the way, I don't know if it's a coincidence, but Merrill said that Brandon Graham is his player to watch today. BG bought those jackets for everyone on the team. So I don't know if that's like a little courtesy, a little thank you, a tip of the cap, so to speak, but nonetheless, very, very nice indeed. So let's dig into the history. There's not really much of one between the Eagles and the Jaguars. Believe it or not, Jacksonville leads the all-time series by a margin of 3-2. The Eagles have won the last 2 matchups. You go back to 2014, speaking of 17-0 deficits, the Eagles rallied from such a halftime deficit and were able to come back and rout the Jaguars to kick off the season. Back in 2010, Michael Vick kickstarted his Comeback Player of the Year campaign. It was his second start after taking over for Kevin Kolb in Jacksonville, and he put up 28 points and was electrifying the league at that point. So speaking of the quarterbacks present day, Blake Bortles, Carson Wentz, both top 3 selections in their respective draft classes. Bortles, we've kind of gone through his struggles, not being able to take care of the football, was benched last week. But Carson Wentz, to me, was brilliant last week. Obviously, there's some question about how he handled the final drive, but nonetheless, he is still young in his NFL career, and I thought it was just another good learning experience for him to go through as he matures into one of the game's biggest stars.
Yeah, and I think when you look back at that game, sure, that certainly is going to be a learning experience for him. Me personally, and this is just how I felt, I don't think that that's a game where I'm looking at and saying, you know what, that loss is on Carson. Yeah, you'd like the end of that game to go a little bit differently for him. You know, hit Wendell Smallwood in the flat for a check down there, give them the opportunity to come back, and win that game. But I think overall, Carson Wentz was outstanding, and really that's where we are at with him in his development. I mean, he's one of the best quarterbacks in football, not just young quarterbacks, one of the best quarterbacks in the NFL. I expect him to have a big game here today. And you mentioned earlier that was Michael Vick's kind of big game back in 2010 against the Jaguars. Deshaun Jackson had some big plays. Yep. Jeremy Maclin had some big plays. I expect that kind of day here from Carson.
Interesting players going back in time there. So looking at the offensive numbers between these two teams, with the Jaguars, it's about getting things going in the ground. But with the Eagles last week, watching through those first 45 minutes of game action, I really thought that the preseason was over. Okay, Alshon Jeffrey was making huge plays. Zach Ertz was making chunk plays. 12 personnel was working effectively. It was just they were just not able to close out the game. They couldn't get the 4-minute offense going. They couldn't get a first down or two when they needed it late in the game. But overall, though, I just felt really good about things moving forward because you knew with Carson Wentz coming off the injury, it would take some time for him to work his way back into the feel of the game. For a large part of last week, I thought it was there. I thought everything was finally clicking for this football team.
I felt the same way. And even going back and watching the film on Monday morning, you could really see that they were kind of getting into a little bit of a rhythm. Things stalled late in the game, but I think I've got really good feelings, especially in today's game. I mean, you have all these guys down in the Jacksonville secondary, all these matchups. I really expect to see Nelson Aguilar against Ronnie Harrison, that rookie safety in the slot, more often than not. They're going to put Jordan Matthews out in the perimeter, make Quentin Meeks defend him one-on-one, and then see what Ronnie Harrison can do. That's a matchup. If I'm the Eagles, I'll take that all day long. I think you're going to see less of 2 tight ends and more of 3 receivers here today.
All right, let's take a look at the tail of the tape for the defenses here. And the big question for the Eagles when it comes to the pass rush, how much will the loss of Derek Barnett hurt this football team? Last year's first-round pick, was a starter, was reliable, dependent, a consistent force off the edge. That's going to be something that I'm watching early on in this football game. Certainly, they didn't have him for the Minnesota game, but still, for a longer period of time, what's going to be the domino effect from a depth perspective?
Yeah, I mean, you're going to see much more of Josh Sweat, the rookie 4th-round pick out of Florida State, who, he's got all the tools. He's long. He's got that first step. He's got the ability to turn the corner. He's big and powerful, has the ability to collapse the pocket. He just hasn't put it all together yet, and he's a guy that I think when you look overall at this game, you're hoping he's going to play probably between 25 and 30 snaps. You're hoping that he can really start to flash both as a pass rusher and as a run defender. He has shown some flashes here and there. I know he played 8 snaps in one game. He played 7 snaps the week after. I think he's got the ability to really stand out against a 3rd-string left tackle in Josh Walker that opposing teams have just feasted on over the course of this season.
All right, it should be noted that Bennett is the 6th captain for today's game, as it is the first ever international regular season game in franchise history. They've had 4 exhibition games overseas, a couple in London, but this is the first one that actually counts in the standings. And look, this franchise, the entire team, it's been a lot of fun overseas interacting with fans because really they have taken over. And if you want to check out the website, More Alike Than You Think.co.uk, you'll check out everything from John Dornbos, interacting, doing street magic, Jay Ajayi going on a tour with the London Museum. I mean, Chairman and CEO Jeffrey Lurie was getting in on the action at the pub party, the pregame pep rally at the Admiralty Saturday night, leading the fans in an Eagles chant. London has been considered the second home for Jacksonville, but there is going to be so much midnight green, not just on the pitch at Wembley, but in the stands. Even some of the videos we've seen pregame, you can tell that it's going to be a pro-Eagles crowd there today. So it is going to be so much fun to check out. Obviously, the biggest thing is they need to come away with the win. That's the most important thing. But again, if you want to follow the fun we've had all week, check out morealikethanyoutthink.co.uk. All right, so we have a lot more for you coming up here on the Kickoff Show presented by Axalta, including a one-on-one interview with linebacker Jordan Hicks. However, if you are following us on Facebook or Twitter, you need to come on over to PhiladelphiaEagles.com or the app to watch the rest of the show. We'll give you a few minutes to get situated.